Now, the next thing is articulation. There's a lot of studies for articulation. Usually the second study in every book is for articulation. And of course, it's in A minor. And the first note that you come across is middle E. And they all go like this. Something like that. You know, that's a typical sort of lick from one of these studies. But Böhm, when he is doing this, the tonguing, he doesn't do them for hours on end, like, you know, the Anderson studies for tonguing. They go on for hours on end, and they're really very, very difficult. And it defeats somehow or other the method of doing it, because when you want to learn tonguing, you don't want to sort of start doing one of these big studies, but you want to learn a simple thing like this. That's the double tonguing. But of course, you know what is even more important is single tonguing, because we use single tonguing more than double tonguing. Let me give you an example. You know this famous piece? Right? So when you play the D major concerto, what do you think about when you do that? Or you just think, oh, that's easy, I don't bother with that. Well, not me. I think, oh, this has got to be crisp, like really. And then it makes you think, what should it be like this? Or should maybe a diminuendo? You see what I mean? It gives you the possibility, when you start to think about it, of changing something, because you know, the first couple of bars is easy compared to what happens in the middle of that concerto, when you have to get seriously involved with scales, like this. Which you can do if you have the bricks and everything in place and ready to do them. But it requires an awful lot of practice. And I would advocate practicing all these single tonguing things, you know, because in symphony orchestras you get to do it all the time, you know, like this, for example. And that in itself is difficult, you know, that scale. To get that in tune, you have to put every note in the right place, and that you only learn by doing this business here. You know what I mean? Just by practicing, there's an awful lot of things to practice on the flute and get better. And once you get into the spirit of practicing, it's interesting. I often get, when I practice, I get so far removed from what I'm originally doing. You know, one day I was practicing D minor. I tell you this because it actually happened. And I was playing D minor, and the more you practice, the more you find out about yourself. You know, the first time you practice, you think, that's okay. Next day you practice, you think, oh, look at that. That's not so even as it was yesterday. But in fact, yesterday was just as bad, you just didn't notice it. You see? So what you're doing is you're becoming aware. You're becoming aware. So so that when you practice, you're aware of what's going on. And then I thought at one point, oh, could be better. We'll do this in a minute. I started with Julius Baker. Julie used to kill me every time he did that. I thought, why is a guy like that doing a thing like that? C sharp, no good. Like that. And at this point, the door opened, and my wife came in. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm practicing D minor." Well, I was getting to know everything about D minor, about the problems of the embouchure involved in there, because D minor is not always going past like a flash. It goes slow sometimes, you know? It's not always like this. You need to change all the time the embouchure to get the tone in the right place for the right job and in tune, right? But then, a couple of years ago, well, maybe about 15 years ago, my wife was teaching a friend of ours who's 52 to play the flute, and they were doing this sonority thing, and I thought, wow, I gotta do something about this, because these two are got their head against the wall here. So I wrote this exercise out. Mark, can you dig that one up? You know the one I'm talking about? This thing here. Because in a short space, it made you aware of the problems with your embouchure. You see, when you play this, if you don't correct anything, if you just play this, it sounds like this. Right? Did you hear that? Okay, this is for the ones who didn't. Right? Now, what are we going to do about that? You just improvise around it to find out what your embouchure should be really, truly doing and getting it in focus, so that when you play any of these pieces, it's going to be always in the right place, best tone, all the time, dead clear, and sparkling, and suddenly the spirit will be in it.